I was driving past some type of industrial complex that really stank up the road with the smell of burning oil or something similar, and it got me thinking about materials that can mask smells. This reminded me of the filthy, fecal, foul-fuming flowers that I already made a video about, and which this video was really a part 2 of, which in short is a family of flowers that release molecules in the air that create an odor of rotting biotic matter to attract flies to pollinate them. A few people commented on it that it would be way too unpleasant to live on my fantasy world, what with all the poop and carcass smell around, and naturally, I can't have that. So fear not, there is a solution. A way to make the spring season atmosphere not just not smell bad, but actually smell quite nice. Kinda. What if there's a family of plants that does the reverse of the filthy, fecal, foul-fuming flowers? One that takes away the stink from around itself? There can be a family of plants, or maybe just one species, that competes with one or some of the species of the foul-fuming flowers for ground space to grow. So in this plant's evolution, it repurposed a leaf and evolved it into a special net-like fan-shaped arm thingy that gets covered in a bit of a special juice that both absorbs the smelly molecules that the flowers around it release, and also release into the air counteracting molecules that catch the bad-smelling molecules in the air and neutralize them. The byproduct of this breaking down of the bad-smelling molecule is a molecule that has something like a citrus smell to it. So not only does this plant directly remove the bad smell around it, it also replaces it with a nice-smelling smell, all to make sure that flies don't find their way to the flowers to pollinate them, so that as little of the flowers propagate on the soil there as possible. Now the leaf is a net-like fan shape to create a large surface area for the juices to be able to release as much deodorant as possible. Another detail I shouldn't forget to mention is that I would imagine that this citrusy smell might attract grazers, so perhaps the juices on the fan arm are also poisonous to deter animals from eating it up. Now, this wouldn't totally neutralize the spring smell of rotting meat, because these sweet-smelling, scent-sucking citruses only grow in very specific environments where they compete with one or barely a few species of the filthy, fecal, foul-fuming flowers. But, that being said, humans are humans, and humans don't care about how plants evolve to grow, and they will use anything they can to their advantage. So besides for removing the foul-fuming flowers whenever they're found growing, they would also plant as many citruses as they can take care of around fields where humans commonly pass. So at least in these areas, the spring season won't smell as bad. Besides for the citrus being used to counter the flowers, the citrus can also be planted next to outhouses, butcheries, stables, and any other smelly areas that people might create or be around to remove the odor and freshen up the air. They're natural air purifiers. Another use for these plants, which was actually suggested to me by Lichen, is for food vendors. They might place these plants around their stands to mask the smell of slightly rotting food. Thus, funnily enough, there might evolve a cultural understanding that when you smell citrus, it means you shouldn't actually trust that the area or the things within the area are actually clean. And maybe calling someone a citrus or saying that someone smells of citrus might be a way of saying that they're someone who puts on a nice mask but hides their true evil self. Or maybe even someone who's only useful for cleaning poop, a nobody. But more commonly, I like to think, being called a citrus might mean that you lighten up the room, or that you help around when there's a messy situation, or that you find the good in bad situations, that you're an optimist. Good things. Maybe the sweet-smelling, scent-sucking citrus may become a symbolic representation of the concept of heroicism, since they stick around exactly where it smells bad in order to make the room smell good for others. So these flowers take on a symbolism that is used to teach children the concept of not running away when the situation gets dire. Perhaps the god of the heroes is represented by the citrus. And there may be a conquering army whose insignia is a citrus fan arm thingy to go in on this association that people have, to say that they're heroic saviors. No, I'm not conquering you guys, I'm just heroically saving you. I'm going into the dirt to help lighten up the area, Also, maybe at the temple sacrifices that thank the god for their gifts and favors, they can burn up such a citrus, maybe together with a token animal sacrifice, to say that they heroically help us in our times of need. They might say something like, just like this citrus sticks around in the dirty places in spite of the dirt to help lighten it up for the people, so too do you stick around with us, lowly dirty people, in spite of our foul stench, to help us and lighten our lives in our times of need. So, to get back to the biological aspect of this video, the citrus has a close relative, which I'll call the trapper, that also competes with the foul fuming flowers for ground space to grow, but instead of destroying the odorous molecules, its fan arm juices absorb the odorous molecules, and the net shape combined with the sticky juices act like a sticky spider web, trapping both flies that get tricked by the absorbed odor and think that the fan arm is the foul fuming flower, or flies that just want to pass through the fan arm to get to the flower without realizing that the leaf is there, and then get stuck on their way. After a while, the flies die from starvation and then fall to the ground. The trappers don't eat the flies, they just more actively stop the bugs from getting to the flower. Now, the juices do also contain those molecules that break down the odorous molecules, but they're only used to slowly destroy the odorous molecules that it has already absorbed, so that the fan doesn't run out of space to absorb more and more of the odorous molecules that the foul-fuming flowers keep releasing. However, because the trapper wants to keep the odor, its process of destroying the odorous molecule doesn't create a citrus-smelling byproduct. So this actually leads me to another unique aspect of the trapper. Its juices don't have to be, and therefore aren't, poisonous, since 1, it doesn't produce a citrusy smell that would attract grazers, and 2, it leaves over the bad-smelling molecules on itself and in the air around it, so grazers would also probably specifically not want to come near. Then there's another cousin within this family of plants, which I think is more closely related to the trapper, which doesn't grow anywhere near the foul-fuming flowers. In fact, they grow in an area without too many nutrients, so instead of trapping or destroying the odorous molecules, they actually create their own in the fan's juices to attract flies, and the juices also contain the poisonous molecules that the citrus has and additional digesting molecules. And so they use their fans like wet and sticky spider webs, just like the trapper cousins, but they go one step further and actually make direct use of the trapped bugs by killing and digesting them to get at the nutrients that are missing in the soil. Now, in my opinion, a cool factoid that develops from this family tree is we can ask which feature evolved first. The carnivorous plant and the citrus both have in their juices toxic molecules, while the trapper doesn't, marking it as the more distant relative. Yet the trapper and the carnivorous plant share the ability to catch flies, while the citrus can't do that, marking it as the more distant relative. Yet the citrus and trapper can both destroy the odorous molecules, while the carnivorous one can't, marking it as the more distant relative. So which feature evolved first, the fan for carnivory, or the fan for competing with the foul-fuming flowers? On the one hand, I can imagine the fan and its juices evolving for carnivory first, forming odorous molecules to take advantage of passing flies, and developing a poisonous molecule to kill said flies. And then once one lineage of the plant started growing in places with enough nutrients to go around, it co-opted its fan and its ability to catch flies to be used to compete for space with the foul-fuming flowers by trapping all the flies in the area, and after a while, with its newly evolved ability to absorb the odorous molecules released by the flowers, it lost the ability to create its odorous molecule, and traded it for the ability to destroy the ones it absorbs. Meanwhile, a further lineage of these plants gained the ability to be able to release the odor-destroying molecule in the air, and for it to form a citrusy smell upon reacting with the odorous molecule, and thereby also lost its ability to catch flies actively because it didn't need it anymore. But on the other hand, I can also imagine the fan and its juices evolving for competing for space with the foul-fuming flowers first, developing a molecule that reacts with the odorous molecule by destroying it and giving itself a citrusy smell, followed by the evolution of the poisonous molecule to protect its leaves from grazers. And then in a further lineage, these plants evolved into trappers by developing the ability to catch flies actively, thereby losing their ability to release the odor-destroying molecule in the air, and changing the form of the odor-destroying molecule so that it doesn't leave over the citrusy smell anymore, and so without the citrusy smell, later losing the unneeded poisonous molecule. And finally, once one lineage of this trapper started growing in places without enough nutrients to go around, it co-opted its fan with its poisonous molecule and ability to capture flies to be used for carnivory, later evolving the odorous molecule itself by changing the structure of the odor-destroying molecule a bit. So really, the evolution could have gone both ways, and the way I've decided to finally think about it is exactly like that. The evolution could have gone both ways. I'm just going to leave it ambiguous like that on purpose. I think it's pretty cool when things like this are confusing and unfigure-outable. Sometimes real life gets too confusing and we can never untangle what really happened in the past, and so to me, having such a thing adds realism. Alright, I hope this dive into the sweet-smelling, scent-sucking citrus and its relatives was interesting to you, and that your brain was able to suck up that sweet, sweet world-building juice in this video. If so, let me know in the comments what ideas this juice has given you, because I'm very interested in hearing all the cool ideas that people come up with. And if you were able to get some juice out of this video, then you might also enjoy checking out my video on the filthy, fecal, foul-fuming flowers. So to those that want it, links are in the description. And of course by juice, I mean jolly, world-building ideas, cranially entertaining.